one that was quite amazing to me was I walked up the street and sat at an outdoor restaurant bar, and I got a little table, and it was about dusk. And I saw a black smudge in the sky, like a little smudge, as if you took a little charcoal crayon, you won't like that. It just appeared.
Okay.
And I'm like, what is that? And I happened to be looking right there. So don't, because you have to understand this sighting lasted about 3 to 4 seconds.
Okay.
And in that moment from I saw it, I picked up the iPhone, got the thing ready, and I took 1, 2, 3. And had no idea what it was. And it appeared and disappeared. So it popped into reality and went back out of reality. It did not fly into position and fly away.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, what the heck is that? So my feeling about UFOs is this: whether they're ours or whether they're theirs, it's as important a story. It's just as important a story. Because if they're theirs and they're not ours, well, it's the greatest story in the world. But if they're ours and we don't know about them, it's also an equally great story. That what are we doing? What kind of money? Because if they're ours and we're making these and they're anti-gravity and they can pop in and out of reality and they can shapeshift and time travel or any number of other things you could add to it, then what does that say about the knuckle dragger environment we're living in,
Right.
compared to the technology that's available?
Right.
So I always try to tell people, no matter what they are, the story is fantastic.
Another episode of Living Life Consciously. I am stoked to get started and very excited for this conversation. So without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Hey there, Cosmic Thrill Seekers. I'm Justin. This is Living Life Consciously, where we explore the extraordinary, ride the waves of inspiration, and embark on an adventure of limitless curiosity together.
And I'm Leslie, your co-host, also known as Light Being Love, an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. And I'm very happy to be here, and we're here with Doug Auld. Doug?
Hello, everyone. Wow, you guys have great raps and titles getting into this. I'm an author. I'm an author of the newly released book, The Beings. Fine artist, UFO fishingman, hunter, I call it. And in general, musician, songwriter, everything in the arts.
Love that. Love all of that. We definitely appreciate you sharing your time with us today, Doug. And for our audience, get ready to dive into a world where art, music, and moral courage collide. Join us as we sit down with the extraordinary Doug, an author, artist, and songwriter whose life was transformed by a chance encounter with the Doors. In the book, The Beings, he shares his out-of-this-world experience with readers and with us. From his early fascination with nature and mechanics to his bold shift from auto mechanics to piano tuning, Doug's journey is anything but ordinary. He's played original music in iconic NYC venues, holla, and now his artistic vision has taken him to new heights, painting 100 powerful portraits of whistleblowers and informers who risked everything for the truth. Doug's work challenges the boundaries of courage and creativity. His art, inspired by those who dare to speak out, is a testament of the rare moral bravery needed to change the world. Doug, thank you so much for being with us today. I definitely appreciate your time. And how are you doing?
Wow, I was ready to turn around to see who you were talking about. Did I hear moral courage? Wait a minute. Hold on. Thank you very much. It's been an interesting journey. What's fascinating about the journey is you never know that it is a journey until you look back. And you're just kind of
Yeah.
going along and you're thinking, all right, one step leads to another, and this and that. I often describe the journey in your life as like trying to jump across a pond, finding a stone at a time, so you don't get wet. You jump, and then there's another one, and there's another one. It's like a leap of faith. So, but I would never have known that I started out as an auto mechanic and interested in being my father's mechanic in his car dealership, and
Mm.
Mm.
then eventually owning the car dealership and selling cars. And then my brother came to the technical high school I was going to in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Ah.
And he said to me, "Get ready, Friday afternoon. We're going to go to Philadelphia and see a band." And I said, "A band? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "No, we're going to see a band. Just change your clothes. We're going to see a band called The Doors." And I went, "Oh, okay, whoever they are." And
Oh my God, whoever they are.
Yeah.
and that's what started it. And we drove to Philly, and I was like, "Oh my God, this was the coolest thing I ever saw." And I remember they had box spring mattresses all the way around the front of the stage to protect the band from being jumped on,
Oh,
like the
wow.
Wow.
security. And that's when cops were cops and hippies were hippies. And, now it's the other way around. Um, so that changed my life because it made such an impression on me. And I came home, and my brother Greg was like a very Jim Morrison esque type of person.
Okay.
And I said, "You know what? I bet you I could play the keyboard somehow. I don't know. I'll learn." And I went out and I bought a little Farfisa organ, and that's how I started to play music. And then a guy in my technical high school named Bob, he was a drummer.
Hmm.
Mm.
And not only was he a drummer, he was a drummer who moved pianos as a job. And
Okay.
so I rebuilt pianos. He moved pianos. It's like God put us together, and we ended up forming a band called East Agony.
Good name.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and we were Doors esque. We had no guitar player. We had I played the keyboard, the piano, and I played the piano bass like Ray Manzarek did, where he played the bass on the left hand and the piano on the right hand. And it was great because this was at a time when you didn't know what you didn't know. So I didn't know if I could do this or not. So I believed I could, and so I ended up doing it. And
Hmm.
Wow.
little by little, it started to unravel. So that's where the life change came, from being a mechanic to
A
becoming a piano
musician.
tuner
Okay.
and a musician.
Wow. Very, very
Amazing.
cool. And
Yeah.
then where did painting come in? Because I'm looking at all your beautiful pieces behind you, and I looked at your website and saw the different collections you have. So would you want to talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my brother Greg was a couple of years older than me, was like in a family of four, he was like the oldest. So he was sort of like the battering ram going through my father first.
That
Okay.
was
To
me.
break down yeah, he had to break down the walls of like what could or couldn't be done or said, and I would slip in behind him. So he he was the catalyst for a lot of my life. He started painting first,
Okay.
and so after he took me to see the Doors, and we got really involved in the music field. Um, he took me to the Salvador Dali Museum in Cleveland, Ohio,
Oh, wow.
and this is one of my Salvador Dali shirts that I have on here. I don't
Very
know if you
nice. Very nice.
kind of out there woo
Yeah.
woo.
Yeah.
And Dali was the original woo wooer, that's for sure. But I looked at these paintings by Salvador Dali, and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. How did anyone paint this? And so then, same process. You didn't know what you could or couldn't do. I came home, and my brother was painting, and I watched him, and I bought some paints like he had, and I started painting myself. And I remember, I think my very first painting was I copied the no, I copied a Simon and Garfunkel album,
Okay.
Okay.
and I painted them, and I came upstairs and I go, "Hey, mom, dad, what do you think of this?" And they're like, "Who did that?" I did. And they're like, "Get out of here," So I don't know. I explain it this way: I'm a very mechanical person, and I always like to look at everything in my life as problem solving. like a mechanical problem
Yeah,
solver.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
just like if you can problem solve over here, then apply it to over there and over there and over there. And that's how I've kind of carried through. So my education is certainly not one of PhDs and MFAs and that stuff. You know, those people can't change a tire. I can.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you and him have a lot in common.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm actually a aircraft mechanic, so
oh, I
I
love it. I
fix
love
I
all
fix
mechanics.
jets,
Who
but
dabbles in cars
well,
and boats
yeah,
and
I also fix
computers and all
boats.
kind of
Yeah,
things too. So that's why I'm saying I feel
cars,
like you
right?
guys have a lot in common.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah,
well, I still have my Corvette that I rebuilt.
nice.
Yep. So anyway.
Good for you. I have a classic Mini Cooper from England, the little tiny.
Oh, oh, wow, yeah.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm the only one in the area that has a car like that. But I know how to fix them. I also it's a shift car. Nobody knows how to drive a shift
Right.
any. So anyway, that's getting out of the gate. You got to shut me up if you want to and get onto something.
No,
No, you're good.
no. Yeah, I
But
love
let's
hearing your story.
transition to you being an author, though. So you went from mechanic to musician to painter. So where did becoming an author come in? And then can you share your contribution to the book, The Beings? What is your chapter called, and what do you
Yeah.
talk about in it? And forgive me, I'm going to be honest, I didn't order the book yet.
We're
Sorry, Amira,
about to
forgive
order
me.
it.
But so I don't know what your
Yeah,
chapter's
yeah.
about. So can you?
By the way,
I'm
I
gonna
didn't
order it
order
tonight.
either.
Oh, okay.
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 I did not order it either, so I don't have any idea.
Okay.
Well, we also have to talk about where I segued into the ufology world.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
You lead the conversation, Doug. I'll follow.
Okay, so this is all going along. I'm like 17 when I'm going to high school for auto mechanics and welding, carpentry, and I'm sure Justin knows a lot about a lot of this stuff. And
Oh, I do.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
and all hands-on stuff. And when I was a kid, I was always fascinated. I'm a bit dyslexic, and I diagnosed it myself because when I went to high school or grammar school, nobody knew what dyslexia was.
Okay.
So nobody ever talked about it. And I went to a Catholic grammar school,
Mm.
and I knew I was terrible at reading. I was like, why can't I remember or read or like follow the page and everybody else is doing well? And
Mm.
then buttons made me feel crummy, like that I was stupid or I wasn't going to get anywhere. So I spent a lot of time staring up at the sky and looking out the window. And I think that was like the beginnings of my sky watching and my daydreaming. I just thought that the universe and everything out there is just so beyond huge, and that I was just fascinated with me. So as a kid at home with my brother Greg and I would watch every sci-fi movie we could, from the original Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra,
Yeah.
Day the Earth Stood Still, Forbidden Planet, all the great movies. And probably one of my favorite ones was The Thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what a great film. And that this will segue into the UFOs in the book, is that in the final line in The Thing, the original 1954 movie, I think it was,
Okay.
Porter goes, "Watch the skies. Remember, watch the skies." And I was like, yeah, that's wow. And that made an impression on me.
Okay.
So as this is going along, I met a lot. I started, when the internet came up, I started to look at UFOs and Googled and searched UFO stuff. And
Yeah.
one thing, I met Colin Andrews, who studied crop circles, and
Mm.
Colin's a great guy. I mean, and then I met Grant Cameron, and Grant Cameron had his Charlie Red Star um, sighting up in Manitoba, Canada,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
documented that well, and it changed his entire life. I mean, he was supposed to be some successful businessman, and UFOs took him so off a trail. But
Detour.
what's that?
Detour.
Yeah, a detour, but he had to follow what was true. He had to follow what was true, and it called him. And I think we all get a calling. We get a calling. It's more than just like a fad. It's like I can't like do this when I know that this is going on out there. So
I can relate to that. Yeah.
I'm sure everybody here could. And we
Yeah.
got on to all that stuff, and little by little I met this one and that one. So I remember Mel Fabregas had a show called Veritas Radio,
Okay.
and I remember he had an interview with Chris Bledsoe.
Hmm.
I had seen Chris Bledsoe on UFOs Over Earth, a History Channel show. And then I heard the interview and I'm like, oh, I got to meet this guy. So I called up Mel, or I wrote him an email and I said, Mel, an artist and a UFO skywatcher. I'd love to meet Chris. Could you send him my email and tell him I want to meet him? And he did.
Oh,
And
cool.
Chris got in touch with me and we became friends.
That's
And
awesome.
then in no time, he invited me to his home in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I went and stayed with the Bledsoes for 3 or 4 days,
Wow.
2014 or 15, I'm guessing around there.
Okay.
And so all this stuff is unraveling since I'm a guy that's going to be my dad's mechanic guy. And that went out the wayside, much to his chagrin. And I just became a creative person, and UFOs and everything just got mixed into it. So I guess where the book got involved in is where I got involved in the book was that I'm going along and I'm looking at all the UFO material and I'm going to some conventions and I'm meeting all these people. I met Travis Walton and from Fire
Mm.
to the Sky and everything. And somewhere around the time of, I don't even like to say the word, but COVID, but
Yeah.
take it back
Yeah.
because I don't even want to give that word any dignity. It sickens me so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, around that time, when everyone was freaking out, I started studying near-death experiences.
That was a game changer in my spiritual path for sure.
Yeah,
Same with
definitely.
Leslie.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just from UFOs like put up the golf ball on the tee to NDEs kind of really completed things because I was going through a lot of depression then.
Okay.
And thank goodness I found Jeff Mara, the Jeff Mara show.
Oh my gosh,
That's crazy.
synchronicity.
Yeah.
What's that? What?
That is a synchronicity because that's basically how Leslie and I met and how things started. I'll just say that.
Oh, great, Leslie. So well, we'll go into that, I'm
Oh,
sure.
you actually were on an interview with Jeff Mara.
Yeah, I did
Uh-huh.
one.
Yep.
Okay. So I started watching Jeff's show and I tell you, it brought me out of such a deep depression because I started to just look at the dead end of the 3D world. It's like, what a waste of time.
Hmm.
Like, it's just, you're going to get old and you're going to die. And what was it for? And blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
I never really understood the depth of the stuff that these people led onto by experience because it would be one thing if one or two people came up with that and you're like, all right, endorphins or crap going on in your
But
head
when
and get,
there's hundreds and thousands of them.
yeah, yeah, there are.
Yeah.
And they're all so amazingly similar.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
That
not all
part.
the same, but they're similar enough where people will say stuff like, there's no time or space. Everything is psychically delivered.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to, John Davis, who did NDE. John Davis, his name is.
No.
No. To me, John Davis is the lead singer of Korn.
Oh, okay.
Jonathan Davis.
Yeah,
John Davis, he probably had one of the most riveting ones.
Okay.
Andy
We've
Petro.
probably heard it. I can't think of the name. I don't have names to all of these. I've seen
Anybody?
so many.
Leslie, did you ever hear of Andy Petro?
It's both of the names sound slightly familiar, but
Yeah.
you'd have to tell me a little bit of the experience for me to really.
It's not important. The point is this: when I heard them, nobody's looking to make money. Nobody's made their life any easier. Very similar to the UFO world.
Right.
Nobody's
Yeah.
like, yeah, what you think you're making $1 million from a book? Forget it. It ain't happening.
No.
Right.
So, but they were so sincere and they told such riveting stories,
Mm-hmm.
and so many of them had the same story. I love the idea that we have angels and guides around us, and that they're right here, but they're like in a shift. It's like
Yeah, just a
or we
different
like
frequency. Boop.
just differing frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And the frequency story then dovetails into why I've adhered to my music more than painting. I kind of stopped painting and I'm putting all my time into music because I really do think that frequencies, music frequencies, and vibrations is what everything is all about. And
Yeah.
so,
Shout out
music,
Nikola Tesla.
yeah. So music is where it's at, and so when I went, I'm going through all this, and so let me just backtrack and say that with the NDEs, I started reaching out to the people that had NDEs. I was like,
Oh.
oh, you know how they would leave their email and like, oh yeah, say hi, and like, I
Yeah.
don't know how many people do it, but I'm the one of those pains in the asses that does it. I'm like, I get them on the phone, hello, and one of the people that I reached was El Suramaga. Does anybody know El's name?
I know that name because she founded the Near Death Institute with Amira May, who did the book Death and the Beings that you're a co-author of.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That was a brain
It was-
flex.
It was El. Yeah. So it was El who I met first, and we got
Okay.
along very well. And we started to. She would share some information about the NDEs, and I would tell her stuff about my work and Hypnota and how I feel about life and blah blah blah. And she said she came to me one day and she said, Doug, I have a really amazing offer for you. And she said, I have a friend, and we're going to be working on a book together, and on and on and on. And so it was Elle that brought me into the Beings project. I just wanted to know that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's cool. Excellent.
So that's where it got going. And then I worked with Amira wonderfully. I think she's great.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me to write a chapter. And I got on it kind of right away. It was good because, boy, then life got really busy. But I wrote my chapter, and I guess if I saw some of the chapters in the book, some of them, and I met a lot of the people who are really wonderful. Most everyone younger than me,
Okay.
and their experiences with the phenomena are different than mine.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
I'm cut out of the cloth of Grant Cameron, a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant would call my UFOs like the nuts and bolts end of ufology.
Ah.
Right.
Okay. I'm familiar with that term.
Yeah, nuts and bolts, and good term to use for a car mechanic too.
Yeah.
Right. It's something you
Absolutely.
could definitely relate to.
So
Hey, wait,
and what I
before
really wanted to do was offer the reader and the listener what I would call a flat-footed take without too much spin. That there are things in the sky that I happen to see, and I happen to catch them just at the right moment. And I don't, and this can get into a great conversation about consciousness,
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
and
This show's called Living Life Consciously, so hey.
Yeah.
how do you like that synchronicity? And how we are, co-creators of the things in front of us or around us, and
Yeah.
that I really think the idea that thoughts are things, which is a really remarkable concept. One of my
Yes, sir.
favorite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I was trying to tell a friend of mine that today, and he just about hung up the phone. But it's like, the thoughts are things, my friend, and
Where thoughts goes, energy flows, right?
yeah. But the fact that there had to be more. Look, most people have never seen a UFO in their life.
Right.
Right.
And if they did, most people didn't have a camera with them. So think of the chances of A, seeing a UFO, and B, having a camera ready. And that like cuts down the audience down to nothing.
Hmm.
I seem to be able to have a knack for like, I don't know whether I just look up at the right time or whatever, but I seem to be like tapped into I'm gonna see these things type of thing.
Yeah.
Like an attitude of like
Right.
I'm gonna them and because one of them in the book is so remarkable that I would even have a chance of seeing it. And that's what really started to get me to think more about like the consciousness aspect of it. But the reason why I brought up this whole thing with the nuts and bolts and what Grant and I said is that I document them by taking photographs of them. I don't tell you what they are because they're unidentified. That's what a UFO is. It's
Right.
like unidentified flying object.
Literally.
I don't have answers. All I know is that it's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's not a helicopter, it has no blinking lights, it's not a drone. by process of elimination, you eliminate the things, and then what is it if it's up there and you can identify it?
Yeah. So do you feel like you had the conscious intention to connect, and that's why you basically were doing what you were doing, trying to capture images and just having that conscious connection or the intent to capture them, drew them, or like, maybe like the law of attraction or whatever it might be, connected you to them. Is that what you're saying that you think is going on basically?
Yeah, probably not at first. I probably at first um just my wild like love of the sky and the universe and existential thoughts and anything other than earth was my thing. And I started to like little by little, if I saw something or captured something, it would encourage me to look up in the sky even more. And I always tell people if you want to see UFOs, you actually need to look up.
Yeah.
Sounds so
Can't be
simple,
staring
right?
at the curb all the time. It's pretty simple.
Right.
Uh, so it just kind of all grew as I studied the internet, and I got to know like Colin Andrews and looking at crop circles and what's that all about from here to John Lear. I spoke to John Lear several times before he had passed on,
Oh
and
wow.
a
Okay.
lot of very interesting people in the UFO field. And you know, it's very easy to write everybody off as just being nuts and like, you know, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I always knew there's something far more to this, and that the sane world, the business world, the working hard at their, you know, nose to the grindstone type of world doesn't have time for this
Yeah.
interest. And so I started to little by little more and more think of the idea that you know, I was kind of wishing for them. And as I wished for them and I wanted to see them, um, with patience, a lot of times it would happen, not all the time. I'm like not a summoner of some, you know, I can't do that. But they would start to show up and I would start to pick up on them. And I always had a camera with me. I always made sure I had some form of camera, whether it was my iPhone or
Yep.
telephoto lens, Nikon,
Yeah.
or something in my car, or binoculars or something that if I needed it, I could grab it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Um, so I'll give you an example. Would you like to hear one of them that was
Absolutely.
remarkable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Coming home from hockey on a Sunday morning, I was ready to walk in the door and I looked up. Don't ask me why, but I just looked up to the northern sky and I saw what I would describe as a large star, just
Okay.
like a bright star in the daytime sky, like 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what is a star doing out? There was no other star there.
Yeah.
All right, what is that? So this guy Mike, my neighbor, was nearby, and I said, Mike, keep an eye on that. I'm going to run in, get my camera and a monopole like tripod, come back out.
Okay.
And he kept an eye on it, and I came back. Now some clouds were moving from west to east, right over my house towards New York City.
Okay.
Okay.
So that means there was a wind direction. Yet this object never moved once, stayed right where it was. So I knew it wasn't affected by the wind. It made no sound. It's
Mm-hmm.
too small to get any kind of detail out of, but I looked at it and I said, all right. So when I brought the camera in and I took the camera, the zoom or the you know, the lens that brought me able to see it close up and took a bunch of photographs. I still couldn't quite tell what it was, but I knew that it wasn't a stationary dot. There
Okay.
was something going on around it and whatever.
Oh,
Took a
like an
whole bunch
aura
of
or something?
What's that?
Mm.
Like an aura or a bubble, some kind of.
It was more like
Yeah.
a shape shifting
Oh.
thing, you know. And so when I brought it in and loaded it up on my computer and downloaded the images and opened it up, I realized that singular white object was a group of objects of about 7 or 8. Oddly enough, and back then we didn't hear the word, but this tic tac kind of rounded off square, like a rounded off
Okay.
square, like a tic tac.
Yeah.
There were 7 or 8 of them, and they were moving in and out and coming apart and then coming back together again. And then they
Wow.
were making configurations of certain shapes, and it all looked as one object from a distance. But when I pulled it in the camera, it turned out to be a multiple of shapes and things,
Wow.
and they were very symmetrical. Like if like that was a tic tac, they lined up 1, 2, 3, 4, like on the angle,
Oh,
and
wow.
some of them went straight, and it's just. And I knew that this is not a normal thing. I mean, what could this be? So
Right.
now here's the interesting. I tell the story in the book.
Okay.
Okay.
I after I downloaded them and everything like that, and I got them ready, and I was going to send them out to like Grant and Chris and all my UFO friends and some people that I thought were fascinating, that they would, find this interesting. And I sent the emails out within a couple of days, and it's never happened in my town before and never has happened since. I had a Black Hawk helicopter over my building.
Ooh.
So low, I could have hit it with a stick.
Ooh.
Wow.
And it was like one bum 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 bum. It was just sitting right above my building. And I'm like, what the, oh my God. And I remember like I ran downstairs and I was gonna get in my little Mini Cooper and go to a coffee shop at the other end of town.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Got in the car and I looked up and I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm not joking. I could hit it with a rock.
Okay.
Got in the car and I went to the coffee shop and it was there. I was like, no way. It followed me to the coffee shop.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, either that's the strangest of coincidences ever, or it wasn't as close. It was further away, but that was it. And that's something that kind of served me notice that, all right, think that through. How would it know that? How would whoever surveilled me know who I was, where I was, off of an email?
Mm.
But they seem to know, and I know that that was I really have to feel that that was action of intimidation.
Okay.
It made me feel intimidated to know that something that grand or powerful could be above my home. And nobody could ever tell me that that was a coincidence. It was not. And I've never seen a Black Hawk helicopter in this town, much less over my building again ever since. So
Okay.
Wow.
to end the story on that particular sighting, I called, I forget who it was. This is what drives me crazy because I don't know who it was to this day. And it makes me think that they weren't who they said they were. But people got in touch with me and said, Doug, we'd like to check out your sighting that you had of the object. I said, okay. And they came and they did a whole bunch of study and they looked at all my photographs and they checked all the airports in my area from Lakeville, New Jersey, where the Hindenburg blimp blew up,
Mm.
Okay.
Teterboro Airport, to Newark Airport, to Kennedy LaGuardia. They checked the radar, traffic, and all the information in those areas, and they said it's an unknown. Nobody had anything in the sky sitting there, and we've not been able to verify what it was. And that was it. I to this day, I've tried to find that email. I tried to find that email. I had old computers that broke and old
Sure.
emails that I don't have anymore. And so I was not able to remember who it was. I almost remember what the guy looked like, but I don't remember who it was. And that was the story of that object. So that was one of the objects and one of the sightings that I put in the book. It's again, as Grant would say, an object in the sky. It's like a nuts and bolts thing. And I captured it, and I captured 7 or 8 of them that I put in the book.
Mm.
Wow.
That's a really amazing story to hear that. I guess maybe what's coming to my mind, and this might tie into consciousness a little bit, is um, it's been said that UAPs have the ability to project into somebody's mind, a certain type of being or object or whatever, maybe do you think that Black Hawk helicopter could have been what the UFOs were projecting,
Like it
or
was cloaking itself
maybe, yeah.
as a helicopter?
No.
It's
No?
it's a great idea, and listen,
Uh-huh.
where I'm at, I'm open to absolutely everything. Anybody says anything to me, it goes in a section of I'm open to it in my head, and it
Okay.
sits there.
Yeah.
Not like I don't block anything out. But I gotta kind of tell you, as much as I believe I'm real, that Black Hawk helicopter was there. It
Sure.
was powerful, and
Okay.
it was there. But I don't really know. Like
Yeah.
I know that it's a lot of mystery. The problem with going down that road is that then you start to question
Like
everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was wondering if it was like a UAP cloaking itself as a helicopter
That's
just to
essentially what
just
I'm
to let
saying,
Doug
or
know, hey, I'm here.
asking.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's what you were saying. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Essentially,
Yeah.
that's what I'm. Yeah.
And now you guys are being cloaked from that UAP
Oh,
to.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew I was in a trap.
Yeah. Boy,
But
that's a deep rabbit hole.
I do have a very high level, turned out to be a great friend who at first it was a little risky, but I do have a very high level intelligence agency friend
Oh.
that people in my circle and Grant and people know about, Chris
Okay.
and everybody, that happens to be of a particular 3-letter agency.
Mhm.
First letter starting with yeah, a C.
Okay.
I see where this is going.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 other letters in there, an I and an A.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow, so AIC, Acacio.
Right,
There you
right,
go.
right.
Anyhow, amazing guy who was for years in charge of the so-called weird desk at this agency. And I met him
The
through
weird desk.
online stuff, met his wife. They're lovely people. They've invited me to their home, and I've gotten to know them and I've stayed with them. I happened to bring my UFO photographs up there one day to show him. And there's nothing that's going to pass by this gentleman. He's a real soldier,
Okay.
and everything he sees, he thinks is BS,
Okay.
and probably so. And he did at one time tell me that he will never divulge anything to you, but through certain questions, I asked him, "All right, but," I said, "is the phenomena real?" And he said, "Yes, it is." So he went that far as to say the
Okay.
phenomena is real. Okay.
Okay.
But he looked at the photographs and he was like this, and he looked at like that, and he looked at like that, and he looked at his wife, and his wife looked at this one and that one, the one I'll tell you about now. And they were both like, and I remember her saying, "What's amazing is what is it doing there?" As if she knew what it was.
Oh, like she's like, I've seen this somewhere else before. Why is it over there?
Yeah, but I
Oh.
can't really attribute
Sure.
anything solidly to them because they're not that way,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, but he said to me, "Nice photographs, Doug," and just closed the computer and walked away. So later on, okay, so one of the other ones I want to tell you about, and this will dovetail into our consciousness talk.
Sure.
The one that was quite amazing to me was I walked up the street and sat at an outdoor restaurant bar, and I got a little table, and it was about dusk, twilight time, not zone, but that was twilight zone.
Okay.
And I saw a black smudge in the sky, like a little smudge, as if you took a little charcoal crayon, you went like that, it just appeared.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I'm like, what is that? And I happened to be looking right there. So don't, because you have to understand this sighting lasted about 3 to 4 seconds.
Okay.
And in that moment from I saw it, I picked up the iPhone, got the thing ready, and I took 1, 2, 3. And had no idea what it was, brought that home, put that on the computer, enlarged them. And people, if they buy the book, they'll see that image. It's called the Smudge UFO. I call it the Smudge UFO.
Okay.
And it's like a BB, like a symmetrical BB with a cross in the middle of it, as if you could put your 4 fingers in it, like a bowling ball.
Okay.
And it's like a perfectly symmetrical thing like this, where it's got 2 dark holes, and it's round. And it appeared and disappeared. So it popped into reality and went back out of reality. It
Mm.
did not fly into position and fly away.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I
Okay.
was like, all right, that's what the heck is that?
Yeah.
That was the object that my friends remarked on, that what was it doing there, which made me think, so my feeling about UFOs is this. I use the old term, by the way.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cool.
my feeling about UFOs is this: whether they're ours or whether they're theirs, it's as important a story.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
agree.
as important a story. Because if they're theirs and they're not ours, well, it's the greatest story in the world. But if they're ours and we don't know about them, it's also an equally great story. That what are we doing? What kind of money? Because if they're ours and we're making these and they're anti-gravity and they can pop in and out of reality and they can shapeshift and time travel or any number of other things you could add to it, then what does that say about the like knuckle dragger environment we're living in
Right.
compared to the technology that's available? So
Right.
I always try to tell people, no matter what they are, the story is fantastic.
That's so true. And
Absolutely.
that's a very synchronistic comment for you to make because we just recorded the next UAP UFO news show when we were talking about Lou Elizondo's book Imminent and how
Yeah.
he has all these theories about UAP propulsion and space-time dimensions. And he was talking about the bubble that's formed around the UFOs in order for them to like not experience Earth's gravity, and that's how they're able to do all these like G-force maneuvers that would smushify a human being, let alone a craft.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to stay on track with my thoughts here, I'm sorry, but basically like, oh, crap, I lost it, dang.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? What was the last
It was
thing you said?
synchronistic.
Synchronistic.
Smushify is a great term, by the way.
Smushify. Yeah.
Oh man, I was going somewhere with that. Where was I
Yeah,
going?
well, did it have to do with high technology and secret space
Oh,
weapons?
that's what it was.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we were talking about the bubbles, and I said to him, I'm like, it's so wild that if this is really a thing where we have this device that could create this distortion of reality, and then there's crafts that can then float around in ours with it, and we're
Mhm.
still over here stuck in traffic burning fossil fuels. Like,
Yeah.
the difference and the
Right.
stark contrast is crazy.
Well, my son, who doesn't really study this much, but he's aware of everything I'm aware of, but he's not in this world, thank goodness. He always said to me, Dad, makes sense. He goes, if you went to a tribe in Africa or out in the middle of the Amazon or somewhere where they knew nothing, and you could bring in a computer with the knowledge of a computer and everything that you could do on a computer, plus project an image on a wall and do everything like that.
Mhm.
He said,
Mhm.
think about it. Wouldn't you maybe hold that information for yourself and not lord over, so to speak, but like now you're the witch doctor. Now you're the one that has the knowledge. And maybe it's not the maybe it would take more time and consideration to think about whether the average person should have that knowledge. So Grant Cameron and I had a conversation about this, and Grant told me he spoke to a very, very high level naval or military person
Yeah.
that was involved in this whole thing. And that the guy basically said this. He goes, all you guys have is curiosity. You don't have a need to know. It's a need to know that matters.
They
And you
basically
don't.
like deal with the president in the same way, that because the president is like a
Sure.
temporary employee that they
Yeah,
don't
that's
have the
super
need
wrong.
to know.
Doesn't have a need to know.
That's
And
crazy.
so there's information. Now, what do we mean by that? So why would it even have to be evaluated? And it always comes down to national security. It always comes down to war. It always comes down to who's going to lord what over who's going to have what technology to beat who. The
Right.
problem is it becomes so perverted along the way that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like you have a special weapon, and now you're like, now I want to use it to like lord over somebody with it rather than like make a peaceful world. So I think that analogy my son was trying to tell me about the Amazon jungle tribe is sort of similar in the fact that if you have this high technology, is it good for them to know about it? I did actually hear something. This is a little humorous, but I heard recently that someone went into a tribe deep in the Amazon
Yep.
and brought them computers, and now the entire tribe is addicted to pornography.
Oh,
Yes, we
gosh.
heard that the other night.
Oh,
Did you hear that?
I
didn't
heard
hear
that the other night.
Yeah, I read that. I was like, oh, of course.
I think I heard that on Joe Rogan.
Could be.
Dang.
Joe was talking about that. But again, it's like, it's something that happens, and that it's the easiest way into something. Now, this is such an easy thing to have, and it's the same thing maybe with technology. We don't want everyone to have it, so we have to hold it back. And I don't really have a solid, like, I'm not a CIA hating person.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not an intelligence agency hating person. There's probably very, very good reason to dislike them, or very, very good reason to feel threatened by them. But we don't know what they've done for us. Like, we don't know what they've protected. We don't know
Yeah.
how we only know the downside of them, and that would help me. That would, if you'd like, dovetail me into my musical Hypnota, because that's part of my show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
You want to hear a little bit about that?
I would
Yeah.
love to hear about it. I was looking at your website earlier, then I was like focusing on that section. So yes, please.
So as we're moving along through all the stuff I'm talking to you about, and getting into the UFOs and the NDEs and this, that, and everything else, I I had that I had a vision in the middle of the night. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I said this word, Hypnota, and I never knew where it came from, and I never knew if it was said to me or if I said it, but I never heard it before. So why would I say the word? But somehow I
Yeah.
woke up and just said it. And I wrote it down. In the morning, I read it with my coffee, and I started to meditate on it a little bit. And as time was passing, I'm writing more music. I'm backing away from my visual art. I'm writing more music, and everyone in my family and friends thought that my music sounded like show tunes, or classical, or not pop music, or not anything that anyone would want to hear on the record radio. So
Mhm.
somehow I got the prompt, or the push, from
Inspiration.
my guides.
Okay, what'd they say?
I really that take everything all your talent now, put it all together, and write a Broadway musical about disclosure.
Okay.
And
Wow.
bring the story of ufology to the Broadway stage rather than movies, because there's a million movies out there with special effects, but nobody has really put this on the stage.
Right.
And so I said, all right, that's what I'm going to do. And I tell you, Allie, 20 to 30 pages came out of me like water.
You probably
Wow.
just channeled
You're
it. You probably just,
channeling it,
yeah.
Thoroughly channeled it. Thoroughly channeled it. And
Wow.
and it was like, and so, does anybody know the name Nancy Tremaine?
I don't.
Okay, she's a UFO experiencer, quite a story. She has 3 books out.
Oh,
And you may want to write Nancy Tremaine down.
yeah.
Is she
Tremaine.
Is she a blonde lady from the South? Does she have a really thick Southern accent?
No, not really. She's in
Okay, then I'm
Detroit.
thinking about somebody else.
No, but anyway, Nancy Tremaine is great. Now, Nancy I knew through Grant and some of the blogs that we were on back then, and Zoom calls. Nancy and I never met, but as she was working on her books, I was working on Hypnota.
Okay.
Okay.
We would talk over a phone, and we would talk sometimes over Zoom. And I loved her story. Her story is Nancy and Cindy, her and her best friend, saw a UFO in their neighborhood, tilted sideways in the trees, blah, blah, blah. Big story. Even the police chief saw it. The police came, everything, and it's
Oh.
documented.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Comes with receipts.
Where was that at?
I love stories that come with receipts.
Nancy
Yeah.
Tremaine is her name. And she has 2 books. I'm blanking on the name right now. I'll think one in a second, but I'll send it to you later.
Okay.
And So I decided Hypnota, my story of Hypnota was going to be built around two characters sort of similar to Nancy and Cindy.
Okay.
My characters would be Nectar and Jilly.
Okay.
Okay.
And Nectar, the name Nectar was sent to me. I was on a lot of stuff happens to me when I'm going to play hockey, but I was on
Sure.
my way to hockey and I'm looking at the traffic light. I'm just staring at it, and I heard the psychic word nectar, nectar, and I said,
Nectar.
okay, that's it. Nectar will be my character,
Okay.
and I just immediately accepted it, and then I matched it as Jilly, matched Jilly, and in the real life story from Nancy Tremaine, Nancy and Cindy, Nancy had this event. Nancy was kept on the ship for a day and was lost. Came back, and Cindy eventually found her. And in my show, Nectar is kept on the ship, and Jilly finds her the next day. And Jilly and Nectar are best friends from high school, same age, but Nectar has a Native American background.
Okay.
And so now I start to tie in the red and blue kachinas and all the Native American lore because of the cave drawings and everything like that. And so my two main characters are Nectar and Jilly in my show Hypnota, and then it unravels from there. And it's their story. And what they do to prove their event real in my show is they get like an old trailer, like a Silver Stream trailer, one of those
Yeah.
silver.
Oh
They
yeah.
cut it open on the side. So on the stage would be the trailer, cut open
Okay.
on the. And Nectar creates a radio program called Hidden Truths.
Okay.
And she interviews radio guests. And she wants to prove the event real. And her sidekick, Jilly, is always by her side. And they go along. The CIA become aware of them. And they come into the scene and into town to try to thwart the scenario and try to ruin their progress. And the CIA characters are based on my real friend. So it's kind of a riot.
The guy
how
you
I
were
tell
talking
this.
about earlier?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's based around him. And one of the songs that I wrote is based around a saying he always says, which is a riot. And then I used him and I used my son Brian as Agent Bryant.
Okay, okay.
And it's all in the show. And the show unravels, and I tell you, if you guys have ever seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart around the holidays, if you've ever seen it, but it's like a classic holiday movie. It's a beautiful celebration at the end of the film where they all come home and it's just like a huge celebration of happiness after such estrangement. My show is very much like that. It's got tragedy, it's got sadness, it's got a death, it's got excitement, but it has a triumphant finale. It's got no violence in it. And somewhere along the line, a producer has to find this show and produce it because I don't have one. I had one, he was interested, but I think he opted out. He doesn't know a lot about UFOs and he doesn't really understand the UFO world.
Yeah.
So I need somebody in the UFO world who's in the theater or producer or movie business.
I think you should reach out to James Fox and see what kind of connections he could hook you up with.
Yeah.
You know what? All things happen for a reason, and I'm going to do that.
You should.
I have a picture of him and I together, so I'll push that in his face and say, "Remember me." So it's good. But James is great, and maybe James would be able to help me with that.
Yeah, you should definitely reach out to him.
Yeah.
He probably has some kind of connections.
Let's manifest it.
Right.
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to do it as a show is that we're inundated today. I have a theory, my own feeling, it's just my thoughts, is that there's too many special effects in the world today. We have too much computer involvement.
Yeah.
Kids are yawning at special effects that are so advanced that they're yawning at them. It's like, yeah, whatever, so what? That you really can't outdo it, and we're not using our imagination.
Bring it back to the simplistic roots, right?
Yeah, and I'd love to have the UFO as a silver disc in the background that gets lowered on wires and
manifest it. Think about it. Speak of it as if it's happening.
Yep, and then two little smaller kids jump out with the eyes and the whole thing, and I want it to be more like a Lion King thing, but of UFOs, you know?
Very cool.
So that's my goal for Hypnota.
Being a New Yorker, I'm all about Broadway shows, so I totally support all of this. This is very cool. A
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broadway show about UFOs. Like,
Yeah.
can we like as soon as it's ready, I'm gonna be there to watch it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so that's where we're at. That's where everything is going. James Fox would be a great person to talk to. And one of the main reasons why I want to bring it to the stage is look, we're all preaching to the choir. We all are talking to UFO people.
Right.
They know about this.
Right.
Think of how great it would be for a tourist audience, a family, someone comes into New York City and says, "Dear, let's go see a show tonight. And I heard about this show, Hypnota. Let's go see Hypnota," you know?
Yeah.
And like, what's it about, George? It's about a UFO, you know? And then that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to kind of bring a soft disclosure to a
Yeah.
non-UFO audience because I don't know that regardless of Lou Elizondo and all these people, I don't really know that the government wants this to
Oh,
happen.
they don't, because then they'd have to admit to like their decades worth of lies and
Yeah,
cover-ups and
murders
everything
and
else. And
everything like
I
that.
didn't want to say the word, but you did, so
And
that's fine.
all the money that they've spent on trying to
Yeah.
reverse engineer, UAPs
Yeah.
All these
and not
black
Yeah.
projects,
getting
all this
anywhere.
siphoning money, and claiming that it's like a $15,000 toilet seat. Meanwhile, they're back
Yeah.
engineering
Yeah,
UFOs.
and they
Yeah.
got 40 of them.
So it's a problem, and I think that what they give us is limited hangouts where they take you down this avenue and then they take you down that avenue, and then like I remember, I'm a friend with a guy named Dan Wellis. What a great guy! I love Dan. Dan
Huh.
is a naval guy that's so deeply into everything we're talking about, but more advanced. And he knew all the people like Marcel Vogel with electronics and frequencies, and he's an interesting guy. I can send you his website.
Okay.
Probably one of the most educational websites you'll ever find.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah, I'll
Yep.
check it out.
Yeah.
And Dan was a naval guy, and Dan was the reason why I brought him up is he was in the 2001 National Press Club disclosure in DC.
Oh, okay, with Stephen Greer.
Yeah, he was part of
Yeah.
that. He
Okay.
was part of that, and a lot of other like top people. And Dan gave his testimony, and Dan told me he was a naval guy, and the way he got into this was he intercepted a message from one ship to another that he just intercepted a message that said that they just saw in front of their eyes a ship come out of the water and shoot off into the sky at like 1,000 miles an hour.
Wow.
USO
And
transmedium status.
he was telling this story back in 2001.
And Dan was telling this at the National Press Club.
Yeah.
And so Dan and I became friends, and he's told it to me on his own, when we've been on Zoom calls.
Sure.
And we got to know each other. And like, you just start to piece this credibility story together,
Yeah.
one person after another. So I guess in the end result now, I've moved more towards NDEs, and I've kind of like, I don't know if NDEs have done this to anybody, but this happened to me.
Okay.
I've recently decided I'm really not. It's sort of like it ended my quest for knowledge. Let me see if I can explain that. I used to be a science guy, and every little bit of quarks and new science and atom smashers and the Hadron Collider and what's going on with string theory. I used to care about that. Now I don't.
Right.
Okay.
I completely lost my interest in
You
science.
shifted kind of like from nuts and bolts to the woo a little bit, seems like.
Yeah, I'm like, that stuff is still like trying to figure out how we got the people inside the television. They're not in there. It's waves. It
Yeah.
comes from out here. So NDEs have woken me up to the fact that we're all gonna go home. We're all one family.
Yes, Doug.
We all fell in separation. The dream, the greatest analogy is we're all actors on a stage.
Yeah.
This is just a play.
We're all playing our part, and when we're done and the curtain closes, we're all gonna high five and switch roles. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and so nobody's the lead. Yeah, you're the leading man in this play. You're the loser in the next play, and blah blah blah. We're all the same. And
Yeah.
Like, and everything is okay.
yeah, everything's going to be okay, and everything is okay. And actually, real mind blower is because it's hard for me to get this because I'm a human fixer. I like to fix things.
Yep,
The
me
other
too.
thing is, mechanics. The other reality is that everything is as it should be.
Mm.
Perfect, right?
That's a mind blower because you're like, what do you mean? We got to go out and do this, and we got to change that, and we got, that's true, but that's within the category of you're doing what you're supposed to be doing here. It's like which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
We're sent here to take these roles. I agreed to take this position in life. So did you guys,
Yeah.
and so we're playing out those roles, and so my belief about the Hubble, and then we have the James Webb.
Yep.
Mhm.
In my mind, if we invent another telescope, the stronger it is, the deeper we're going to see because we, through consciousness, are going to create that vision.
Ooh.
It's
I
only
like
going.
that.
It's only going to see what our consciousness agrees on to create.
Wow.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, what is your theory of everything?
Theory of everything.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a big question.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure on this show.
Sorry.
Ice hockey first. No.
Yeah.
Well, you were
I-
talking about us creating
yeah,
consciousness collectively and like our experience collectively. I mean, I would assume you think
Yeah.
we do it individually for ourselves, and you're kind of putting that to the bigger picture of us all creating collectively. But yeah, you could. I'm sure that's somewhat attached to your theory of everything that you might have going on.
I like to explain things to people and myself. I explain things to myself, people in like as above, so below, in the whole to the parts, like parents to children, like large to small, all these kinds of analogies. For example,
Yeah.
if you have like 6 little kids in a playpen in the backyard, and you or mom and dad, you're in the house washing dishes and looking out the back window, and there they are in the playpen, right? And there's an older one, there's a tougher one, there's a softer one, there's a bully, there's a little delicate one, and they're fighting, and one's doing this and one's doing that, all right? They're going to have a whole bunch of theories. First of all, you're going to love them equally. So it doesn't matter how they act. You'll love every one of your children, but they're going to have a whole bunch of theories. Like the older one is going to be like, I know how we got here, and mom found you under a fig leaf, and and they're going to have like all these crazy ideas. Parents in the room, in the house, are never going to explain to their children what the truth of the reality is. They can't handle it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with God and us. I mean, I can't come up with an answer of God. All I know is I don't keep my heart beating every night. If I cut my arm off, I can't regrow it. So I'm not God. But I'm a fractal of God. I'm a fractal. I was made in the image and likeness of God. And I'm a fractal. I'm a piece of God. And I'm a creator. Now, look what I did. I created all this stuff.
Yeah.
And not only stuff, I create love, I create humor, I create ideas, I create friendships, I create problems, I create, but like I'm a child in the playpen compared to the overseer of the entire picture. That would be one way that I would describe it.
I
That's-
like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
I
pretty
like that
good
too.
answer.
That's-
I'm
that is a
always
real good
talking
answer.
about as above, so below, like talking
Yeah.
about zooming
Mhm.
in and looking at the micro and then zooming out and looking at the
Yeah.
macro. And what I would like to do right now is zoom out from the spiritual and zoom into a little 3D and talk about all these wonderful paintings that I see behind you. Okay, so your latest project, Those Who Blew the Whistle, features 100 portraits of whistleblowers. And it's not just UFO whistleblowers, it's whistleblowers of all kinds. But I would like to focus on the UFO whistleblowers if you don't mind. So, what drew you to this theme, and which portrait was the most challenging to capture or the most enjoyable to capture? And do you know all these people personally, or how do you pick which ones you do paintings of?
A lot of them I got to know, not all of them. Obviously, I couldn't meet them in person. Could I pick one up? There's one.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we love show and
Oh,
tell.
Okay.
Hold on. I can get it off the wall without it falling.
Oh, he's really taking it off the wall for us. Oh, okay.
Cool.
I just happened to, this one was near me. It's a portrait of John Lear.
Okay.
Ah,
That was one of the ones I saved on the computer to show. Okay, great. Tell us about
Yeah.
John Lear.
very, very cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's
So
really good.
I obviously couldn't meet them in person. So what I would do is I would go through a whole series. First of all, I would wait for somebody to, um, I would wait to take note of somebody I thought was fascinating.
Okay.
Okay.
And believe me, I did 100 of them, but I could have done 1,000. And my friend Peter Robbins, I could have painted him, and so many other different whistleblowers and people up to this time now. There's more and more of them that I could have done.
Would you consider doing another one? I thought about that. I was like, yeah, because there's so many more. You could just keep going. You could have like a whole series of whistleblowers.
I could keep going, and I could do a whole new series, and but no, I think I'm pretty much done with the painting aspect of it, because
Okay.
music is where it's at for me, and I'm doing a whole new group of songs that are going to be a bit edgy and
Okay.
bit topical. We may have been mentioning that earlier. So I would wait to find somebody, like, for example, a, a conversation or a Zoom talk, or somebody would mention a person and I would write him down. I'd look him up. So let's just say John Lear.
Yeah.
And I looked John Lear up, and Area 51 and his father with the Learjet and all this and that and everything else, and their sightings, and the fact that they went to the area and saw the object that was in above the mountains and everything like that. And his entire profile fit to me the profile of a whistleblower. He was giving away and telling people information that the government didn't necessarily want them to hear.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
I would either find a good photograph of him, or I would find an interview and freeze frame
Ah, that's the
a
process.
particular
Okay.
spot that would be the quintessential John Lear, or the quintessential Linda Moulton Howe, or whoever it was, Grant Cameron, I would get. And that's how I did the portraits. And I did all portraits were 9 by 12 inches, all 9 by 12 on a panel,
Okay.
on a small frame.
Yeah.
And I view the entire series as one piece of work.
Oh, okay.
So I will not sell them individually. I will only sell all 100, as some ambitious collectors sooner or later get onto this and want to buy them all. There's a UFO guy from Paradise. What's his name? Dr. Stephen Bassett.
Oh, Stephen Bassett. Okay.
Stephen Bassett. And Stephen came up to me and he said, "Doug, never sell these. They're going to be worth a ton of money someday."
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
When history has enough time to look back at this entire.
Yes. I was just like imagining, when things are fully out and,
Yeah.
most of everyone is fully awakened or whatever to truth and of everything, there's going to be a museum, and your 100 whistleblowers should be on the wall in there as like
Yeah, for
a
real.
tribute to.
Uh-huh.
And I
Has
would
any?
rather. Yeah.
Sorry,
go
I was
ahead.
going to ask you, has any of the people that you've painted seen and reacted to your paintings of them?
Yeah. Well, Chris Bledsoe loves his painting. I painted. Stephen Bassett liked his. Grant Cameron. Well, Grant Cameron never likes looking at his own picture, but his is a good portrait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you sell prints of any of the?
No, and people have, I would consider, people have really told me I should make a coffee table kind of art book
Mm.
Oh,
of,
okay.
of all 100, all 100 portraits. It wouldn't be a bad idea,
Yeah.
because that way
Great
people
idea.
And
could
then
own them. They could have a story about each one of them.
yes.
But not only UFO people. So my whistleblower series covers a wide range. Even President John F. Kennedy.
Yeah,
I-
I have saw
I
that
put
one.
him in. I put him in the series. Like I said, a lot of people, you could take a look at them and you would know.
Yeah, I was looking at your website earlier and I was very impressed by it. And then I also wanted to know if you could talk to us about the lady behind you, because that
Yeah.
is the Lady of Light who Chris Bledsoe saw during his experience. Is that right?
Yeah, in fact, I have a photo here I'm ready to send Chris. I just took it out. Maybe it will show on your picture pretty well.
Yeah.
That looks great. Oh.
Oh,
There we go. Okay, wow. So
Yeah.
you painted that just based off of the description of his story and what he saw and all that, right?
Yeah, so I usually don't make paintings of out of my imagination. I'm a studio artist and I like to paint realistic things and
mm-hmm.
portraiture and figures and more of a classical realist type of painter. So I'm not like an imaginary type of surrealist or anything. Although I did a whole series of surrealism on my work on my website that you can scroll down to.
Saw that. Hmm.
But this was a kind of a how do you like paint somebody's dream or somebody's vision? It's like not easy to do. So I put that painting together from his description of
Yeah.
up in the middle of the night and being summoned to go outside, him feeling a cool breeze coming through the woods, and a bull ran right through out of the woods, like an invisible bull ran through him, knocked him over, and when he turned around on his knees, the lady was floating off the ground like in front of him, and that's how the vision came to him. And look, I can't tell you, I wasn't there. He had it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't verify to the right or to the left what was, but he's as sincere a guy as anybody else is going to be, and his goosebumps would be up on his, freaking him out when he's telling the story, and he'd have tears in his eyes.
Sure.
And he told that story. So I took my best bit of information
Yeah.
and I meditated on it for a long time. I didn't paint it for quite a while. And I think close to a Christmas coming up the following year, that's when I made the painting.
Wow. Well,
This.
it looks amazing to me. Has he seen it and reacted to it?
Oh yeah, no, he loves it. He thinks it's great. In fact,
Oh,
I'm gonna send that photo to him. I've had it for a long time and now I'm gonna mail it to him.
okay.
Um, he loves it, and he said, "Yeah, Doug, the face is a little different, but you've got the whole essence, and the whole idea is there. The way her hands were like this,
Hmm.
and I purposely put the bull running towards you, and then there's the tree that was on fire in the background.
Oh yeah, I see all those elements.
Yeah, if you go, well, you've been on my website, so if people go to my website,
Oh yeah, drop your links. Drop your links.
Yeah, DougAuld.com, DougAuld.com. And you'll see all the series of my work from my burn survivors to my whistleblowers, and we could talk about that too if you like. To my surrealistic paintings, to my photorealism of cars and tools, and my highly realistic stuff of my cars and tools, down to my surrealist images, and down to the very bottom where you could see the image of the lady and Chris Bledsoe and his dad. By the way, his dad, I was the last person to be with his father before he died. And that was,
Oh.
yeah,
Wow.
not too many people know that, but I was at Chris's house
Yeah.
and his father was sitting there and we were sitting there together. And I gave him a hug and I said, Mr. Bledsoe, thanks for having me and treating me so well. And I said goodbye to everybody. And on my way to the airport, he passed away.
Oh
Oh
no.
wow.
So
Wow.
that was that. But yeah,
Yeah.
those were amazing days. So
You've lived
that
an
was,
you lived an interesting life, full of experiences, full of all different walks of things to do, and I'm just really impressed by your story.
It
Yeah.
seems like you pretty much stayed in the flow state for most of your life, just going with the flow, creating and
yeah.
helping with disclosure at the same time. So thank you for having an open mind and being a believer
Yeah.
and creating all the awesome things that you've created, and that I don't want to call it the wrong thing. Is it called a play? I don't know what it's called. Your
Like
the
musical?
yeah,
Oh, the
Yeah.
musical.
Musical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hypnota.
Oh.
Hypnota.
Hypnota. Yes.
Yeah. People,
That sounds really awesome.
if they go to my website, DougAuld.com, my art website,
Mhm.
on the website is Hypnota link right on the front. So you can click on Hypnota, will take you to that site. There's some samples of the music. of the show,
Yeah.
and then you can read the about it. You can read the synopsis and what it's about and why I made it, and so you can go to that, and that will give you an explanation. You know, it's funny we were talking about all the different things I've done in my life because I don't have any kind of formal education, and I had a brilliant PhD friend of mine, this woman, doctor, told me, she goes, Doug, you have no idea how fortunate you've been to be denied an education.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Because you got a lot more real life experience versus formal experience, I guess, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a good way to put it or not, but
no, but I mean, listen, I'm not taking anybody down that's got a great education, but it's sort of
Mhm.
like, you ever see that movie, the Castaway with
Yeah, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks? He's on.
Wilson.
Yeah. You know, if you were on an island by yourself and that was it, and that was the end of it, and you would eventually start to make art and you start to make music. Let's just say you had the benefit of a mate and you had children, and they had children and children and children and children. And eventually you'd create your own theater, you create your own art, and you create your own culture.
Yeah.
So you would invent and come up with ways of doing things by finding things and seeing something in a tree and like, hey, look at that. And that looks like this. And I like to think in terms like that. Like we said earlier, Justin, about problem solving.
Right.
It's like a matter of just like problem solving. It's like move in the direction of correcting whatever you're doing. If you start this way and it's wrong, go a little bit that way, you know. So I've always kind of figured it out. But whenever I have found a calling, I will say this: I've dedicated myself very deeply to it.
Very cool.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you ask
for
him
doing
your
that.
famous question? I
Oh
want to know
yeah.
the answer.
Okay. So what is your greatest hope for the future of humanity? That's a big
Uh,
one.
yeah, I guess it is a like, you know, cliche-ish kind of, gee, wish we could all just get along type of thing, you know.
Right.
But I really would love to see mankind, um, not necessarily agree on everything. I kind of, a lot of people won't agree with what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I like the differences in people. I like that black people are black people. I like that Hispanics are Hispanics. I like that Chinese are Chinese. And I like that all those different cultures, being a person in the New York area, you go to Chinatown, you go to this place, you go to that place, Little Italy, and you got all these flavors of different cultures that
Yeah.
come together. And I make that analogy. If we were stopping brainwashed of being not proud of who we are, just this is who I came to Earth to be, and this is the role I was given to play, and just celebrated your uniqueness. All these different cultures, I make an analogy to glasses of colored water, like bright yellow, bright green, like bright blue, pink, orange. Just get all these beautiful colored glasses, okay? And they all sing in their own little vibration and tone.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you pour them all together? It's just ugly brown. The personality of all of them is compromised.
Right.
And no longer do you have that unique dish here and that unique sound there and so and so. So I'm all for celebrating our differences and learning to work in harmony like notes on a piano and like
Yeah.
colors on a canvas rather than being mud, because all these forces are trying to convince us that we're racist and we're this and we're that and we're everything. I live in this little town outside New York City, and I got to tell you, in this square mile of people, every kind, Chinese, Indian, black, this and everything, absolutely everybody gets along. Everyone. I've never seen a single act of like, hey, F you. It doesn't happen. Where
Yeah.
we don't get along is the mainstream media. It's their crummy, polluted
Fear-driven.
of keeping us divided
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
telling us we're racist, telling us we're this, telling us we're that. Everyone gets along and just,
Programming people.
Mm.
yeah.
And
So,
fear and keeping everyone in a state of fear and
Yep.
anger when really, and we learn from near-death experiences that we can just all just be okay and love each other because we're
Yeah.
all a part of each other and connected and we're all the same, you know?
That would be my vision, Justin. I would love to see us.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I totally
Oh, no,
interrupted
no,
your
you're fine.
answer.
Please. I told you earlier, you have to interrupt me or I'll just keep going.
Oh,
You're fine. And I love the idea that if we could just get to the ABCs of getting along with each other and understand that what's great. Look at wildlife. Lion isn't a tiger. A tiger isn't a bear. A bear isn't a this. That isn't a that. And if there's enough water in the pond, everybody will leave themselves alone and take what they need to take. But
Yeah.
we do live in a 3D world of we eat each other. I mean, it's plain and simply the way it is. Bugs eat each other, and animals eat bugs, and we eat animals, and animals eat us, and microbes and everything. So it's a 3D world. So I'd love to see people just at least get to baseline one of being in harmony with each other by accepting our races and our differences.
I think that's a good point to make. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like you're stressing the importance of recognizing our cultural isolated identities while at the same time doing the zoom out method and appreciating that we're all just fractals of source that came here to have these individual experiences. So just get along while you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
and all of our differences that we do have make it very interesting and
Absolutely.
not so boring.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be boring. I heard one of the NDE people say this, that there's love and there's hate. We live in this 3D environment, and God would like you to make more choices towards love than hate.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More choices towards love and hate.
I feel like that's the importance of having like these kinds of conversations to where we can like normalize the stuff that before was considered taboo or conspiracy
Mhm.
theory or has
Yeah.
been stigmatized and
Yeah.
misinformationized and all the other stuff. So thank you guys so much for sharing your time with me and with our audience this evening. I feel like we've had a really great conversation. Doug, I'm super impressed with everything that you've done, all the people you've met, all the paintings you've done, and I'm really excited for our audience to be exposed to your
Yeah.
work as well.
I'm
So
really
thank you so
excited
much.
for the future of your music, that you're working on now.
Yes.
So that's something
Yes.
to look forward to. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
Definitely.
you. Once I get it produced and up onto, I think I'm on DistroKid, and I'm going to get it put up onto the channels.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Spotify. I'll make sure that you guys get an email, and
Yes.
Oh,
please
good.
Make sure that
Yeah.
you get that.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on to talk about it.
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to. It's been a very enjoyable night, and thanks. It's been enjoyable to meet everybody.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And for our
Thank you,
audience
Deb.
that's still sticking around, please do us a favor and smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word.
All right.
Much
Much
love,
love.
peace,
Peace.
and
And
namaste.
namaste.
Love, harmony. Okay.
Yeah.
Hypnosis, not a word you ever heard, but when you hear it, you feel it. Hypnosis there for you. Be your happy, be your blue. Revere it, don't fear it. Hypnosis always knew, like the early morning dew. A sweetness, I love you, never knew. Here it come, here it go. In the ebb and in the flow, go reveal it to others that you know. Hypnotize all across the land. Hypnotize guidance for your plans. Hypnotize, not of time, not of space. Quiet and true, always waiting for you.